Hello, and welcome to the 2021 World Watch List release event. My name is Andrew Croft, and I'm from Open Doors Canada. Open Doors has been serving persecuted Christians for 65 years. We began when Brother Andrew began smuggling Bibles behind the Iron Curtain to strengthen the church there. He found a church that had felt that they were alone and had been forgotten by the greater church around the world. Well, our world has changed a lot in 65 years, but our mission hasn't. And while we no longer have to work behind the Iron Curtain, we are working in more than 60 countries to do just that. And we're excited tonight to present to you the 2021 World Watch List. The World Watch List is presented every year by Open Doors for more than 25 years. It's a research-based document that compiles information from around the world and ranks the 50 most dangerous countries to live in as a Christian. Now, this information is then sent to an outside auditor who audits it to make sure it's correct information, and it's a very authoritative list. In fact, it's so authoritative, it is presented in parliaments and governments across the world. In fact, we here at Open Doors Canada have had the opportunity to present it to our parliamentarians for the last 2 years, and we will be doing it again this March. Now, we would love for you to invite your MP, and so to find out how you can do that, please visit our website, and you can invite your MP and tell them that you believe this is an important event for them to be at. But the list isn't just research-based and authoritative. The list is important to us as Christians because it shows us where we need to focus our prayers, where we need to focus our time, and where we need to focus our finances. And so over the next hour, we are going to present to you the World Watch List. We're going to have some music presented by the People's Church Toronto Band. And our executive director, Gary Stagg, is going to join me here. And we're going to talk about some of the latest trends from this year's research. Then we're going to have a colleague from Open Doors Africa who will be sharing about the persecuted church in East Africa. It's going to be a great night together. In just a moment, we're going to sing together, but before we do that, I want to express my gratitude and thanks to the People's Church here in Toronto. Not only are they providing us with the music tonight, they've provided us with this set where we can present to you the World Watch List tonight. Without their partnership, this event would not be possible, and so thank you to the People's Church. Let's take a moment and sing together.
Find rest, my soul, in Christ alone, and know His power in quietness and trust. 'Cause when the oceans rise and thunders roar, I will soar with you above the storm. Father, you are King over the flood, and I will be still and know
Friends, last year in January, when we released the 2020 World Watch list, none of us could have imagined what we were facing for the majority of 2020. COVID-19, of course, has dominated our lives, and we've all felt the effects of that. And even with what we feel here in Canada and in North America and the Western world, our brothers and sisters who live in countries where they're persecuted have felt that even more. And so we want to give you some highlights from the World Watch list today, and many of these highlights are going to center around COVID-19. So we're going to talk about the things that have happened over this year, the trends, and Andrew and I are going to take you through that. And so Andrew's going to start. And Andrew, tell us what some of the trends are this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, COVID-19 has been a huge thing for all of us, but especially for our persecuted family. And so the first thing that we notice is that COVID-19 has really become a tool for persecutors against Christians. For instance, take India. 80% of Christians who went to get food aid reported that they were dismissed from those programs and didn't receive the food that they went to. And so we actually heard of Christians who would walk several miles elsewhere to find food and hide their Christian identity just so that they could get that food.
And I know that scenario was repeated in at least 12 other countries, 12 for sure that we know of.
Yes.
And sometimes it was driven by government officials, other times it was driven by local community leaders, because oftentimes it's local community leaders who are designated to give out the aid that's given by different organizations. And so I know that this is not just an isolated problem, but a widespread problem.
Right. And in India, Christians are more likely to be unemployed than other religious minorities. And so it just has left lots of people destitute. But it's also really hit the churches, because when churches stop, donations drop. And so pastors who rely on these weekly offerings are not getting what they need. And then on top of that, not only are the pastors struggling, the normal humanitarian work that a church does, both within the church and within the greater community around it, it just hasn't been able to happen because they haven't had the funds.
And another phenomena that's happened is with the lockdowns, with people being confined to their houses, many of them, thousands of them around the world, are locked up in the same house with their persecutors. Mm-hmm. And so in a normal situation, they would be going to work, they would be going to school, and just getting out of the house was their respite from their persecutors. But now they're locked up in the house with their persecutors. And of course, we know even in our own country how domestic violence has risen. Well, just imagine what it's like for people that are already suffering persecution at the hands of their own family members. It's really staggering to think about.
It really is incredible to think about what is happening. And now, COVID-19 has another trend, is COVID-19 has particularly enabled Islamic extremism to grow and spread in sub-Saharan Africa. And so while other parts of the world, restrictions and lockdowns have actually meant, and in many other parts, that violence against Christians has decreased. Not persecution. Persecution is increasing around the world, but violence has decreased in other parts. Not so in sub-Saharan Africa. In fact, in many parts, more than 30% increase in violence against Christians.
I know, I hear stories from Nigeria, and of course we've all heard stories from Nigeria about the violence that's happening there, and much of the violence is targeted towards Christians. We know that the Fulani herdsmen have ransacked more than 400 villages in Nigeria, and we know the crops were destroyed, places were burnt down, churches destroyed. We know that Boko Haram as well, that's very active there in Nigeria, are responsible for 400 violent incidents in not only in Nigeria, but they've moved into the northern part of Cameroon as well, and 90% increase from the previous 12 months.
Yeah, that's staggering. In Burkina Faso, now last year, those who are familiar with the World Watch List would remember that Burkina Faso dramatically entered the World Watch List for the first time, jumping way up. Well, things are not improving. And so there's been a lot of violence still. 1 in 20 people in Burkina Faso have been displaced. And so conflict prevented Christians in more than 1,000 villages from voting in their most recent election. Not only that, this year, extremism has continued to attack churches with multiple people being killed in each of those church attacks.
I know that there's also this phenomena with unemployed youth in sub-Saharan Africa, where they have gone unchecked. And because they're taking advantage of the situation with the pandemic, things are going unchecked, and so violence is really on the rise. And so human trafficking and trafficking in arms, all of those things. Christians have been reporting that the lockdowns have actually made them sitting targets, waiting for people to come and persecute them.
I know those who have got their guidebook or have looked through their guidebook for the 2021 World Watch List will notice that Mozambique is a big riser this year. And in Mozambique, Al-Shabaab, now not the same Al-Shabaab from Somalia, but this Mozambique edition of Al-Shabaab has really increased violence in northern Mozambique, and they want to impose Sharia law. And so there's been a lot of violence against Christians in Mozambique this year.
And I know that the group Anwar al-Sunnah continues its attacks on Christians in places like Cabo Delgado and Tanzania, where hundreds of thousands of people are being displaced. Displacement's a big problem.
Yeah. Well, COVID-19 has not just hit sub-Saharan Africa. Another one of the trends that COVID-19 is affecting, it comes in Latin America, where COVID-19 is actually propelling criminal groups and organized crime. And so that means, like in Mexico, with the authorities focused on trying to contain the virus, it means that criminal groups have been able to kind of have free run. And so trafficking groups have imposed their own controls. And so pastors and church leaders that stand up against that are being persecuted. And so when they challenge them, they're being extorted, ambushed, robbed, shot, and unfortunately even killed.
And I've heard that pastors in the rural areas where cartels are controlling, they've been made to stand at the checkpoints to watch for people that are violating the curfews and the lockdowns and so on. And because of that, the people in their own congregations, they're losing credibility with them. And that's a weakening of the church.
Absolutely.
Because now people in the church are questioning their own pastors, but the pastors have no choice to do it or else they'll lose their lives.
Yeah, I heard that's happening particularly in Colombia.
Yes, exactly. That's where it's happening, in Colombia.
Yeah, and two other countries in Latin America that are not on the World Watch List, El Salvador and Honduras, yet they still score a high level of persecution, are seeing reports of rapes of pastors' daughters trying to destroy the families and weaken the church.
It's all about weakening the church.
Absolutely. And that's their goal because they stand up against organized crime. Now, there are other trends that are not as related to COVID-19. And so one of those trends that is continuing is religious nationalism. It continues to rise. Now, this has been a trend for a few years, but it continues. And one of the countries that we talk about with religious nationalism is India. India is really trying to convert the country to mean that to be Indian is to be Hindu. And so that means that mobs continue to attack and harass Christians with impunity. The police, the officials rarely do anything against these extremists who are attacking Christians. And so also in India, India continues to block foreign funds to Christian organizations. And so you will have heard of potentially some big organizations that have had to come out of India. And it's affecting church organizations, hospitals, and schools as well that are run by Christians.
I know that Turkey has also made some, I would say, hostile gestures towards Christianity with the converting historical Christian buildings, historical Christian churches that are centuries old. And they've, over time, they've become museums, but now they're still considered to be sacred sites for Christians. And the government, in its push for nationalism, has converted those sites now into mosques for Muslims to go and worship. And Turkish influence spreads beyond its own borders. Most notably recently in Azerbaijan, and its conflict with predominantly Christian Armenia. And in northern Iraq as well. At least 25 Christian villages have been emptied as a result of Turkish attacks in this past year. We've seen the Turkish inclusion in northern Syria, and many of these people are people who have already fled the Nineveh plains, and we're going back now only to be attacked one more time. Turkey's relocation of refugees back into northeast Syria continues to change the dynamics and the demographics of the area. And it leaves Turkish Christians, the ones who have converted to Christianity, especially vulnerable in those areas. And many have had to flee again. Turkey also has a stake in Libya as well, which we don't talk a lot about, but because of the oil and gas and so on, they have a stake in Libya. And based on ambitions of this revived Ottoman Empire, which they have in their minds. And it's because of that known to support local jihadists. And they have also been known to bring thousands of Syrian jihadists as well.
And so Turkey is really an area that we need to be praying for and focusing our prayers on. The last trend that we want to talk about is actually the exponential rise of the surveillance state and digital persecution. Now, we talked about this last year at our World Watch release event with China. Now, it's just growing. And so in China, millions of CCTV cameras are now linked to what is called the social credit system. And so this social credit system means that citizens are monitored for perceived loyalty to the communist creed. And so that means Christians who do not follow that creed are not doing acceptable social things. And so they're considered dissidents, and they receive low social scores.
Yeah, so there's a penalty for them to pay. And I know that in some provinces of China, there are reports that cameras now have been installed in all of the state-approved religious venues and churches. And we know that churches that are trying to do online stuff, like all of us are trying to do this past year, I know that they've been particularly vulnerable to monitoring. To avoid detection, we hear that many of the underground churches are actually meeting now only once every 6 months. And so they're kind of changing it up so that they would be less likely to be detected. And of course, we also know, with the heartbreaking thing is that anybody under 18 years of age are completely forbidden from attending religious services or going inside of a church or any Christian building.
Yeah, it's sad that this is how the government is trying to stop the church and weaken the church. But we serve a big God, and a God who is not deterred by what governments do. Now, we've just scanned some of the notable trends from the 2021 World Watch List research. Now, if you would like to dig deeper, then I encourage you to download a World Watch List guidebook from our website at opendoorsca.org. In that guidebook, you'll find information on all top 50 countries and all kinds of more information that will help you pray for a persecuted family. If you would like a paper copy, then shoot us an email at opendoorsca@odcan.org, and we will make sure to mail you out a copy so that you can be praying for a persecuted family.
And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. Can you sing that with me, church? Come on. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. Let's declare it again. All the earth, come on. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. Last time with all we got, come on. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry, these bones will sing. Great are you, Lord. And it's your breath in our lungs, yes. So we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, yes. So we pour out our praise to you, Lord. One more time. It's your breath, yes, in our lungs. So we pour out our praise, yes. Come on. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise to you only. And we sing, great are you, Lord. Over our circumstances today, declare it, come on. We sing, great are you, Lord. You're high above our city and our nation, Father. We sing, great are you, Lord. Jesus be praised in every tribe and tongue and nation. Come on. We sing, great are you, Lord. Hallelujah.
In just a moment, we're going to be joined by Fikiru from an undisclosed location. Fikiru is an East Africa research expert. But before Fikiru began working for Open Doors, Fikiru came to know Open Doors because he was a persecuted Christian. When he first met Jesus, people from other faiths, including his own parents, began to persecute him. They threatened to kill him, and the newly constructed building that they were holding their church services in was destroyed. It was through this persecution that he came to know about Open Doors as Open Doors came alongside to help and support him. Now, Fikiru works for Open Doors, providing expert research into East Africa to know what is happening to Christians so we can know where we need to be at work in those regions. And so welcome, Fikiru, tonight.
Greetings to you and bonjour. My name is Fikiru and I live in East Africa. I am responsible for research work in East Africa. When you look at the World Watch list, 7 out of top 50 and then 3 out of top 10 are from this region. So I would like to ask you to pray for Christians in East Africa. There are more than 231 million Christians in the countries where we are operational. Countries in the region like Somalia, Eritrea, Sudan, Ethiopia, Kenya, Mozambique, and Comoros are among few. Many governments in the region, even though they guarantee religious freedom on paper, but practically, Christians are facing a number of challenges and restrictions. Open Doors have 4 objectives for the coming years. Care for the severely persecuted church, to empower the marginalized church through various programs, to equip the emerging church in the region, which can be done through persecution preparedness programs, discipleship programs, economic empowerment, and leadership development programs. The 4th one is to prepare the church at risk of persecution, or what we call it, threatened church. The main goal of the enemy when they attack, it is to discourage Christians to abandon faith and then leave their commitments. But when they know that the Lord is with them, and when they know that Christians are praying for them, they will be highly encouraged. Please pray for Christians in the sub-region so that they can endure all these sufferings as a result of faith in Christ. I want to give a specific prayer point about Mozambique. Many Christians in the northern region, Cabo Delgado, are uncertain about their daily life. Insurgents who are inspired by ISIS-infested ideologies are attacking and raising villages in the country because the insurgents has a plan to start Islamic State in the region. There are many Christians who have been displaced from their homes and houses. Houses have been demolished, Christians have been killed, and then physically attacked. One of them is called Sister Tabitha. She has been persecuted and attacked, and then her husband is being killed by the insurgents. So I want you to pray for Christians in Mozambique. Please think about them. Lift them in your prayers so that they can endure this difficult time in their life. And then I will encourage you to pray for Christians in Sudan to have a trust in the Lord, and then also be prepared what to do for the coming days. I ask you to pray for the government of Sudan to have a wisdom in this situation. It is not always everything is dark. Christians in the country are cautiously optimistic about the change in Sudan. Sudan, for several years, have been the top 10 countries in World Watch List. But this year, Sudan dropped out of the top 10. Over the past 2 years, the country has passed through a number of changes, including the constitutional amendment of freedom of religion in the country. Unless the current government continues to make sure to realize its commitment, what it promised for the international community into its own people, these progresses can be reversed. At local level of government, there are many wrong practices which has continued even to this day. A sister in Sudan who decided to follow Christ was attacked by her family. Her family forcefully arrested her in the house for a number of days up until an informed Christian in the neighborhood helped her to escape the situation. Eritrean believers are always passing through difficult times and situations in their life. This year alone, where hundreds of Christians have been sent to jail for meeting underground. When we pray for them, please pray for their safety. Christians cannot pray, cannot meet together and share their faith. Many church leaders have been sent to jail in Eritrea and been left there for unknown times. So please pray for the families, for those who are jailed for 2 decades. And then also pray for the government of Eritrea as well to understand its duty to protect the rights of its citizens. Not only marginalization, but also the extreme form of violence. A brother from the eastern part of Ethiopia, Muslims have cut his hands for bringing Christians to his house and pray together. We can also add example from Kenya. Many school teachers and Christians are being forced to leave the northeastern region and places like Garissa. And then also in Mandera this year, there was a bus attack whereby insurgents, Al-Shabaab attackers, who crossed from Somalia, stopped the bus and then singled out Christians for their faith and then killed them. Finally, I will ask you to pray for Christians in Comoros. Christians in Comoros are denied of their very existence. They are not allowed to openly join the Christian churches, which is mainly for expats in the country. The government of Comoros wants to make sure that no Comorians are Christians or practicing Christians. I encourage prayer for Comoros Christians so that they can stick in their faith and continue practicing their faith despite all those challenges and restrictions by their own government and communities. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time, and may God bless you. We all love you from East Africa.
Thank you to Fikiru for sharing with us this evening. We want to take some time now and pray for our persecuted family around the world. And so I encourage you to pray along at home where you are. If you would like to add your prayer to the comments, you could do that, but please participate in this time of prayer. Let's go to the Lord together. Father God, I thank you so much for the opportunity we have to gather in your name to pray on behalf of our brothers and sisters around the world. God, we think of such a tough year that all of us have had in 2020. But God, we think of how COVID has so greatly affected our persecuted family. God, how it's become another tool for persecutors, and how it's caused so much extra violence in sub-Saharan Africa, and how it's caused so much more criminal activity in Latin America, and how this has all affected your church, God. And so we lift up to you your church today, God, and we ask, Father, that you would strengthen your church. God, even as your church suffers from all of these difficulties that are caused by COVID, God, we pray that your church would be strengthened through this, that coming out of this pandemic, God, that the church would be stronger because of what happened. God, I pray that more would come to faith in Jesus Christ because of this. God, we think specifically today of East Africa, as Fikiru has told us so much about it. God, we ask that you would strengthen brothers and sisters in East Africa. God, there are so many needs, so much difficulty, so much persecution. God, and we ask that you would, God, make yourself so real to our persecuted brothers and sisters there. God, I think specifically right now of Mozambique. God, and all the violence that has happened there in this past year. God, we pray that you would strengthen our brothers and sisters. God, be with the pastors and leaders as they try to work through all the trauma that has happened and all the devastation to their churches and their people, God, that they would come together, God, under your power and your strength, God, and the church would be unified and it would grow. God, I pray that you would help Christians in Mozambique to endure and persevere through all of this. Father God, we think of Sudan. God, we're so thankful for the good news that has come out of Sudan, but God, we also recognize that it's not over, that our brothers and sisters there will continue to face persecution. And so, God, we ask that you would strengthen them today. We ask, God, that you would protect them, God, that you would help them to be salt and light, God, that many, as the atmosphere in the country changes in politics, God, I pray that the spiritual atmosphere would change as well, that many would come to faith in Jesus Christ in Sudan. God, we think of Eritrea. God, protect your church there. There's so many in prison, God, and we remember them today as if we were with them in prison, God, as it says in Hebrews chapter 13. God, we don't forget about them, God. We want them to know that they are not alone, that we are with them in our prayers today. God, I pray you would strengthen and encourage them. God, help those family members who have family members in prison. God, may they be comforted. God, may they know your comfort and strength today. Father God, I think also of Comoros, God, where they try to deny the very existence of Christians, and yet we know that we have brothers and sisters in this tiny nation. who are trying and striving to serve you. God, I pray, God, that you would help isolated believers know that they are never alone. That they are never alone because we are praying for them, because we visit them today in our prayers. God, strengthen our brothers and sisters in Comoros. God, we think of all of our brothers and sisters around the world, the millions upon millions of Christians who have faced high levels of persecution and discrimination for their faith in Jesus Christ. God, I pray that you would embolden them and encourage them today. God, we know that many are coming to faith across the world from different faiths in areas where it's not safe to be a Christian, yet people continue to come, and so we're so thankful for that, God, and we ask that your church would continue to grow across the world. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you so much for joining us in prayer.
I've always known this, but I think this past year has really crystallized it in my heart that the persecuted church really are the ones who teach us what it is to live by faith in places that are hostile to Christianity. When we have struggled with lockdowns, we've struggled with restrictions in our own country, we've been given just a glimpse, just a taste of what our brothers and sisters around the world, millions of them, have been enduring for many, many years. I believe that as we go forward, they will be informing us in the West on how to live a life of faith in places that are hostile to Christianity. I can tell you that from personal experience, what I've seen with my own eyes, that the persecuted church is a church that is on mission. They believe that God is with them and that they are there where they are, in the places where they are, to do the work that God has called them to do and to be the light of Christ in some of the darkest places in the world. People say to me about the World Watch List, which we've been talking about, they say, "My, that seems like such a sad list when you really are ranking the top 50 countries in the world where it's most dangerous to live as a Christian." And of course, I'm quick to say, yes, it is a sad list. When you think of what our brothers and sisters are going through around the world, it makes us sad to see what's happening. But I'm also very quick to point out to them that this is not just about numbers. It's not just about statistics. It really is a representation of what God is doing in our world today. Because where we see the church flourishing, where we see the church growing the most, is in places where faith costs the most. You know, the historical record, when we look at the historical record of Christianity, it teaches us that the church and Christianity flourish the most and sees the greatest expansion when it is living under harsh conditions of persecution and repression. In fact, history suggests that the church doesn't handle prosperity that well at all. In the books to the 7 churches of Revelation, we know that the church that got the greatest commendation from the Lord was the church in Smyrna, which was the church who was living under persecution. And of course, we also know that the church with the greatest condemnation was the church at Laodicea, the church that was living in prosperity, where it seemed everything was going well. Well, the scripture places a great emphasis on the body of Christ. It's so important, and I think it's a concept that can be so overlooked today. In this society that favors independence and individuality, sometimes it's hard for us to understand the biblical directive of being interdependent and interconnected with each other in the body of Christ. But what's important to God needs to be important to us as well. And God places an enormous importance on the body of Christ. And remember, the scripture tells us that we are just one body. And it says that when one part suffers, every part suffers with it. And knowing that 1 in 8 of our family members, 1 in 8 Christians today are persecuted just because they're a part of the Christian family, I think that should hurt us. I think that it really does hurt God. It hurts his heart, and it really should affect us as well. So I'm believing today that you will make this personal. I'm expecting today that you will feel the call to learn more and to pray more for the millions of our brothers and sisters in the body of Christ who live with persecution on a daily basis. I'll leave you with this scripture from Hebrews chapter 10, verse 33 that says, "Sometimes you were publicly exposed to insult and persecution. At other times you stood side by side with those who were so treated." Friends, now is our time to stand side by side with those who live in places where faith costs the most. God bless you.
Thank you, Gary, for that poignant reminder that we need to stand with our persecuted family. If you want to find out how you can stand with our persecuted family, I encourage you to visit our website, opendoorsca.org. There you'll find all kinds of resources that will help you to pray for our persecuted family, including a prayer calendar with a daily prayer request so that you can daily pray for our persecuted family. You can also follow us on social media at Open Doors Canada on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. There you'll hear stories and prayer requests so that you can continually remember our persecuted family. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight for the 2021 World Watch List release event. God bless you and have a good night.